What I really try to think about anytime that I'm selling to anyone, or frankly, just having a conversation, because that's what I make selling about. If you ever talk to me and I ever have to sell you something, it should feel less like a sale and more like a conversation. Truly, that at P&G, the hashtag we see equal, it's what we believe in, it's what we bring to the forefront, and it's something that I'm super proud to do and work alongside every day. And so just things like becoming an advocate, those are what might feel like small steps, but they're tremendously huge things that can go a really long way in not only celebrating this month, but celebrating all of history throughout the year.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 267. My name is Andrew.
And this is Michelle on a rainy morning. We're recording early today.
We are. This is, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, it's 8:30 now. But, well, it's funny because, you say rainy. Of course, down here it's 75. We had thunder showers last night, but it was like 80 yesterday, 85 yesterday. My brother up in Washington State had 12 inches of snow. It's just like it's everywhere.
I did see that. My cousin lives up there now, and I did see her Instagram post. I was like, oh, it's so funny because I want snow for like a weekend.
Yeah.
I want it so bad. I just want to like walk around in it, crunch my little feet in it like a little child. But I don't want to shovel. I don't want to drive in it. And then I want to like come back to warmer.
Well, I think that's the thing. I'm okay. I was telling the kids before, I was like, look, now that we're really going to be living in Florida, we're not going to see any snow. I am okay if we take like a ski weekend and go up somewhere where there's going to be snow. Go do that.
Y'all should come up here. Oh my gosh, like do that like next weekend.
Well, okay. Well, that's not going to happen. But I think that would be really fun to do. And also, I think that once we have things figured out, we should do like the team retreats to the cabins. I know Brittany has some place up in Canada. We can go like, I forgot what the term is, but like you're go out on the ice with your little Subaru and just start like driving your cars on the ice and peeling out around like little races and stuff on. Yeah, that'd be so much fun. Go ice fishing. Does that not sound fun?
Oh yeah, ice fishing would be fun. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing.
All right, let's do that next year.
All right. Well, now that we've talked about our vacations, let's talk about some dentistry.
Oh yeah, dentistry.
Welcome to this dental hygiene podcast, or Andrew hates when I say dental hygiene podcast.
It's not just for hygienists; it's for everybody.
It's all encompassing. As anybody who wants to listen, we are inclusive, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about.
As I say, your last week episode that has like we've had follow up and we had lots of people like engage in it. It is not just for hygienists. This is for it's actually for the world on this particular part, but it's bigger. It's bigger than that.
And last week's episode that we were talking about was the one on the COVID-19 vaccination and kind of debunking some misinformation and some myths. And then yesterday, Saturday, we did a little follow-up on Facebook Live. So you can go check that out with Spring Hatfield and Eva Ramsey. And we just talked about kind of specific to our profession, because these two have also been like really in all the science, all the information. They're two that study for funzy immunology and biology and epidemiology. Like they blow my mind all the time with the things that I learned from them. And this morning I got a fantastic message from a hygienist that said she was not going to get the vaccine. And after all of the information she got from the podcast and from the Facebook Live, she is now going to get it because she feels better informed. And I'm like, oh my God, my little heartstrings. Oh, that way. I mean, that's exciting. So, and Spring and Eva brought up something really beautiful on the Facebook Live, because we were talking about, should we make this mandatory to get it? And their point was, because we all believe in bodily autonomy too. Like that's the struggle for us personally, is we believe in bodily autonomy. You should be able to make your own medical decisions about anything. However, in the profession when you are treating others and your lack of immunizations can directly affect patient care or affect you and other team members, that's a big deal. But instead of making it mandatory, it would be so lovely if we were all just really informed. We understood the science, the scientific method, this process. We understood all of the ingredients, and we didn't listen to conspiracy theories. And we were able on our own to debunk the misinformation out there. And then we wanted to get it. So it wasn't mandatory. So anyhow, that's all for me from that side.
It was good. It's a good conversation. It's like I mentioned, like this 5 different times. It was timely. I think that people need to continue to listen to it. Things are going to be, as our guest said, ever evolving. So, stay tuned to updates. I think the Facebook Lives in general, hopefully you'll keep doing those on the occasion around this topic, because I think that would be really, just the update stuff, And of course, we'll try and bring you guys more stuff as things come out. But yeah.
So, hey, how's your walking going? Let's talk about our charity that you're doing all the work for.
So I should probably start off with some shout outs, because one of the very, very first people so let me back up. For those that don't know what's going on. We are doing kind of fundraising and charity event where I wanted to walk 1,000 miles this year. And I said, well, let's get each one of those miles sponsored. And so we put it out on the social medias on, I think, Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. And we've already had tons of people, lots of money coming in. And so I wanted to give a shout out first to Catherine. Catherine Slinger was the first one to actually donate. So thank you for that. Nice. My friend Lucy, Francis, Lacey, Brittany, Jerry, Bobby, and T-Dunks. Teresa Duncan actually even already has donated within just a couple days. So it's going really well. Now, here's like the little behind the scenes thing. I'm actually over 100 miles, but no one really knows that yet because we haven't posted that yet. So if you're listening to this, then you already know. I'm already at 100 and I think 20 something miles.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I don't even want to drive 100 miles.
Same, right? That's 2 hours of driving. How could we?
That's a lot of miles. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. My buddy Daniel, who was on one of our very, very first episodes, he's not in dentistry, but he drove cross country with me and all that kind of stuff. He's a good guy. He's doing it with us. And he's this week, he was, I think, 10 miles ahead of me. Like he ran marathons and stuff like that too. This is why I brought him on. I'm like, okay, let me use you as the person that I need to try and be like. But things are going really good. People are donating. Thank you very much. If you would like to participate, each mile is $5. I'm only asking for $5. I know everyone's donated like 10, 15, 20, 25, 50. Like people are just donating crazy numbers. But you can look at our social media. We have links to, you can just do it through PayPal. It's really easy to do. And then just let us also know which number a mile that you'd like. And if there's a mile that just pulls your heartstrings, mile number 621, just you love it for whatever reason, you can save that number and your name can be on that little tile. It'll be fantastic. So that's going really good.
That's awesome.
I did have to get a massage though yesterday because there's a little tightness in my calves.
You got to take care of your body.
I know.
You're going to be doing this. I'm glad that you went and got the massage though.
I stretch out pretty regularly.
Can I just ask you how the massage was while wearing a mask? It's weird, isn't it? Because I have had a massage and being face down with a mask on.
It was when you're face up, obviously it's not that big of a deal. The part that I had to do is I had to adjust it because when you put your face in that little hole, right, it pulls the mask too tight and then exposes like little air holes too. So like you're trying to like pinch the thing and try and be really careful about it. It's very difficult. It was very hard to breathe, but it was worth it still. And I mean, I was crying in pain anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It helped muffle my screams.
Your tears were making the mask wet, and so therefore it's inefficient.
Yeah, it's counterproductive.
I will say, especially hygienists out there, I have found a great therapist that also does Thai massage and stretching, and holy crap, like that has served me better than like just the typical Swedish or even deep tissue massage. And I've gone after like clinic a few times, like seeing patients, and she like really stretched out my neck and my chest because we're all hunched over. If you guys haven't found that or experienced that, I highly suggest it for your sweet little body that's being put through hell as a hygienist.
Here's the thing. I don't like people touching me. Have I told you that before?
I mean, we've had this conversation. I am less. I mean, I'm obviously.
I won't hug Andrew in a bajillion years, but I'll let people take their elbow and dig deep into my back, where it's just about touching like the internal organs. But Andrew has to stay 5 feet away in a non-COVID year.
Yeah, in 2019, Andrew was required to never come near Michelle.
Like not even with a full body suit, like a hazmat suit, still couldn't even close.
Honestly, I have needs or mental health issues to work through.
Yeah, apparently.
I'm trying. Thank you, Michelle Galloway. I'm trying.
Oh gosh, I feel like I owe Michelle Galloway money for all the work that she's done on you.
Yeah, I think people in my life should be paying for that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I wasn't on this interview, but I'm really excited to hear it. Obviously, I've been in the whole social justice warrior. I mean, I've been doing that for a while. And I say that as like a joke, like, because sometimes the social justice warriors are not a positive thing. They're just super woke and they get that Dunning-Kruger effect and then, become maniacs about it. But I'm really excited to hear this podcast on inclusiveness and cultural diversity.
It's really interesting because we've had Cheya Dixon and she works for Crest Oral-B. We've been working with her kind of behind the scenes in a little bit. And we kind of talked about this in the episode. And we're talking about all these different statistics and these numbers, and diversity and inclusion is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I don't think I know, Michelle, it is for your heart as well. And so we're looking at some of the things that there's an article that is outside of what she talks about, but this is some Pew research that I'll try and link it in the show notes. And the overall message of this research is that the dental health is worse in communities of color. And they kind of broke it down into 4 different, I guess, key disparities that they're looking at. So when we talk about this, I'm coming from it from a standpoint of, like, I know that this our culture net right now is very aware of this is going on, but that's not why we're talking about it. It is why we're talking about it, but it's not why we're talking about it. We really just need to fix objectively the problems that are in our society. And this is a huge, huge problem. This isn't about being woke. This isn't about being any of those things. It is about taking care of or
virtue signaling or any of the things that people come.
I talked about that on the episode actually too. I was like, how do I not virtue signal?
Have you not met anyone virtuous before? Is that why you think this is virtue signaling?
Right. Well,
that's the problem.
At a very basic level, right? Like, we're humans, we're human beings first, and that's what we need to really be analyzing. So we're so lucky that we had Cheya on. We actually, do you know who my co-host is for this?
No.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a co-host.
I won't even tell you then. You'll have to actually listen to the episode so you can know who it is then. That's what I'm going to tease. But Cheya is in charge of diversity in the workplace. And so rather than having a conversation about here's what hygienists are doing, I wanted to look at the corporate standpoint. What are companies now doing to identify and rectify some of these diversity and inclusion issues? So that'll be kind of a little teaser, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Before we get to the interview, we want to say a big thank you to Paradise Dental Technologies, or PDT, for supporting the continuing education portion of this podcast for so many years. If you do not know already, many of our full-length episodes count for CE. You'll find the links in the show notes, or you can sign up for our newsletter by going to ataleoftwohygienists.com. When you sign up for the newsletter, we will periodically send out links to shows that have expiring CE courses attached. And none of this could be possible without the support of the amazing people over at PDT. So check out their hygiene and other instruments at pdtdental.com. That's pdtdental.com. Now, on to the interview. Welcome, everybody, to the interview portion of the podcast. Really excited for our guest today. But before I introduce her, I want to give everyone a heads up. You guys have heard us talking about Brittany in the past. Brittany is our everything. She might as well be the CEO of the company. She really runs everything. But her title, I think, is supposed to be Director of Sales and Marketing. Brittany?
Hey, you got it. Yep.
Something like that. But she does everything for us. We would not be a podcast anymore, for years now without her. So she is on the joining us today for the interview. And I'm thankful that she's here. Thank you, Brittany.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be out from behind the keyboard and in front of the mic. It's a weird role reversal. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I have Brittany on is we've actually been working with our guest, Cheya, on some behind the scenes projects that we can't really get into right now. But I feel like the three of us have like a really good chemistry. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of fun. And I'm like, well, Brittany's got to be on this for sure, because I mean, why wouldn't she want to be? But on today's episode, as we mentioned in the intro, we're really going to be focusing on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And it's going to take an interesting turn because our guest today, it's not going to come from the standpoint of kind of your everyday life as a clinician. We're now going into the corporate venue and what is going on at that level to help support the causes that are out there. So I want to welcome Cheya Dixon to the podcast. Welcome, Cheya.
Hi, Andrew and Brittany. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guest today.
Are you nervous at all?
Only if you have me sing at the conclusion of our time. But even that,
Hope we do.
Not too nervous, but really, really excited for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheya, you are a absolute delight and pleasure to speak with. I'm so lucky that you made the time. But I think we should just jump right on into this because I know you have a lot to share.
I do, Andrew. And again, like I said, I'm really excited to share and just thank you for the time. So I thought I'd start by just introducing myself to your audience and talking a little bit, since it's Black History Month, about what the month means to me. And the incredible work that I get to do day in and day out for, in my opinion, the best company in the world to work for. So I'll start with that. As Andrew said, my name's Cheya Dixon. I am a proud mother of two beautiful children, and my husband has been in the U.S. Navy for 29 years. And so in our family, celebrating Black History Month has so much meaning behind it. Given the fact that my spouse serves our country the way that he does, we really try to focus this month not only on his service, but on the service that so many pioneers in the African American community have laid before us, and the groundwork that they've done to make it possible for us to be the family that we are today. And so we just challenge our children during this month to be the best they can be. We really use this time to really focus on education, which is always important, but we focus on Black history during this month. And then there's also an element of service as well. So we try to make sure that's consistent throughout this month. And what's really cool, Andrew and Brittany, is that this is exactly the work that I get to do day in and day out for not only the African American community, but other communities of color as well. So it's a super cool time to be talking to you all. It's busy, but it's a lot of fun as well.
I love it. Your passion, like you could just hear it just in the intro, how much you love what you do. And what a great opportunity to be able to work for a company that supports you in not only your professional goals, but also your personal goals as well.
Absolutely. It's quite a unicorn experience, if you will.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so many people ask me how I've been at the same company for 21 years and what makes you stay. There's so many reasons. I'll give a couple stories along the way, but one of the most important reasons that I stay is because I'm valued and I'm able to bring my full self to work every day. So you hear me talk about what Black History Month means to me and to my family. I get to talk about that all the time at work, and people are interested and they want to know all about that. And they also are interested in how they can make celebrations like a month like February happen in all avenues and all aspects of the work that we do for not only our employees, but our consumers as well.
Did you want to talk about the name of the company that you work for?
I guess I shouldn't hold that back from the audience anymore. I am a proud Procter and Gamble employee. And so as I think about other companies that I would have potentially had the opportunity to work for throughout my career, I know I made the best choice in choosing P&G.
So you've been at P&G for a really long time, and I find it fascinating, the origin stories. I find it fascinating of, especially getting into healthcare in general, but specifically the oral aspect of healthcare. How did that even come about?
Oh man, Andrew, it's quite the story. So you heard me just mention that I've been a P&G employee for 21 years. I actually started in the company as an administrative assistant 21 years ago. I wasn't quite sure that I knew exactly what I wanted to go to college for. And so I worked full time as a Procter & Gamble administrative assistant and went to school part time on the weekends for 5 years before I really realized that sales was it. It was my jam for me. It was exactly what I knew I was supposed to do. If you can't tell by the end of this podcast, I have the gift of gab. I really love to talk.
I love it.
And more than talking, I love to sell. And almost as equally passionate about singing. So a little bit of everything has sprinkled into my time at P&G. So there's a quick story, and then I'll kind of get back to how I got into oral care. Procter & Gamble several years ago had something called a P&G Idol contest. And it was super cool. You'll love this story. So
I mean, I'm assuming this is like American Idol, like singing contest.
Yes, I was just
okay. Hold on. Before we get into that, like, hopefully you're going to talk about more about your background with singing before you get into this part, though, right?
No, I'll kind of weave it in.
Okay. Don't leave us hanging. You have a whole history of stuff that people need to know about.
They're going to be like, is this about P&G or this girl, or is it a little bit of both?
Hey, it's always about you. That's all that matters.
Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit too. So as this young administrative assistant, young in the company, I had this opportunity through P&G Idol to compete for the chance to hold the title of P&G Idol. And it's a spinoff of course, the very popular show, American Idol. And at this point, our CEO, his son actually played the drums, and he was kind of playing in the background. And I chose The Power of Love to be my song of choice by Celine Dion. And in the chorus, instead of singing I'm your lady and you are my man, I inserted our CEO at the time's name. And it was awesome. Not only because, of course, I nailed that song that day. I couldn't let the audience down if I'm going to sing our CEO's name during the contest. But it was super cool because what company allows you to have fun while you're working, right? And so I beat out the competition and I won the P&G Idol contest. Of course, I got the rights to this title. And a couple days later, I get a phone call from the CEO himself. And we were working on an opportunity through the United Arts Fund to raise funds internally to help support the Fine Arts Fund. And through this initiative, we were looking for an opportunity to raise even more funding. And so I was offered the opportunity to spend the day traveling around with our chief executive officer, going to all of these Procter & Gamble sites. He talked about the initiative and I got to sing.
I was just going to ask if you serenaded these people.
I did all day long.
That's how you get their money.
Yes, all day long. It was such a tremendous opportunity to not only obviously kind of showcase my voice, but also to really find another source of pride in the company that I work for, that we just didn't use one way of thinking to think about how to support the Fine Arts Fund. This was something totally out of the box, totally unique, and it was totally in my wheelhouse. And along those lines, Andrew, I'll share something with the audience I normally don't talk about. I'm a former Miss Ohio America, 1999, and former Miss Ohio USA 2000. My talent was singing, of course. And so it was super cool to be able to leverage not only my professional talents in terms of the work that I do every day, but also the talents that I had and competed against others for the Miss Ohio title. So that's just the beginning of my time at P&G. But that's a story that has truly been one of those staples when people ask me, what makes you work for a company like Procter and Gamble for all those years?
Mm-hmm.
So again, started out as an administrative assistant, went to school part-time. Once I graduated, it's the first move of many that my family had to make for my husband's career. And thankfully, when I moved into the sales function within Procter and Gamble, there were several selling opportunities so that along the multiple moves that my husband had, Procter and Gamble was able to find a position for me to not only have, but allow me to be successful in. And so literally, I've been everywhere, man. Like, that's a perfect time that I could have probably started to sing.
Yeah.
But I have sold across every one of our categories, from fabric and family and home care to oral care throughout my tenure. And it's been a really fun ride.
How do you feel about that term sales? Because, within the dental hygiene community, if we're looking at opportunity outside of the operatory, sales is always given, but then there's always a stigma about it.
Sure. The word sales does have sometimes a negative connotation that's associated with it. But what people don't realize is you sell every day. Almost everyone does, whether they call it selling or think about selling. They're really, particularly in the oral care industry, there's a lot of influencing that's done when you think about the oral care professionals. Patients come in every day and they have to be sold on using an electric toothbrush or sold on changing their toothpaste that meets the need of whatever ailment they walk into the dental office to try to rectify before they leave or before the next time they come in for a prophy or other services. The bottom line is we're all kind of selling all the time. It might not feel like the word sell, but that's kind of what we do every day.
Did you notice a difference in the types of sales when you went into the oral health division, I guess, that you would have changed into?
Yes. So with all of my experiences, I've sold to retail customers, but with professional oral health care, it's a different sale because it is to the oral care industry. So it's very different. But the fact remains that myself, I'm always focused on the consumer. The consumer can be you, Andrew, or you, Brittany, when you go to the retail store. It can also be you when you walk into the dental office. And what I really try to think about anytime that I'm selling to anyone, or frankly, just having a conversation, because that's what I make selling about. If you ever talk to me and I ever have to sell you something, it should feel less like a sale and more like a conversation. But when I do that, my focus really is on understanding and learning who the patient is, who the consumer is, what the problem is that we're trying to solve, because that's what's most important, not a product or what I'm talking about, the solution to the problem, and understanding and knowing that I have that solution right in my virtual bag, if you will. That's what's most important. And so really listening and understanding what it is that I want to do to serve whoever it is that's my audience.
Cheya, I know that we have it's funny because we talked about the pregame of what we're going to talk about, and we didn't talk about any of this. It's interesting to me though, because there are so many people that are maybe early on in their career, maybe even their students listening to this podcast. And before we move on to the next section, I want to just really quickly, if you had a couple of words of advice for people that are going to be transitioning into a sales type job or working for maybe not inside the operatory at a company now, what are some things that they need to be thinking about? What are things that they need to be having? Tell me that quick advice before we move on to the next section.
Andrew, it's such a great question. While I wasn't always in sales, as you heard, I started out as an administrative assistant. So you have to have skills to transfer into any type of new work. With regard to sales, the best advice I could give are kind of these three things. The first is become an active listener. It's so incredibly important. And it's probably a bit taboo to hear a salesperson say, do your best to listen. But it really and truly is important. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I tell my kids all the time to listen more than they talk. That's super important. And it's so, so incredibly important in sales. Number 2, do not ever sell anything that you're not passionate about. You know, if you're selling toothbrushes, or if you're selling dog food, or if you're selling pens, you must be passionate about one or either of those 3 things if you're going to convince other people to invest in a conversation with you, and then oftentimes put their money where your conversation is. It's so incredibly important that you believe in everything that you say, that you believe in everything that you discuss, and everything that you sell. Finally, you absolutely must be comfortable with closing, because it's something that you're expected to do. And if you're selling properly, you earn the right to do so. But you have to be comfortable with closing, because not everyone is, but it's a critical component to being successful in sales.
ABC, right? That's what they say.
ABC.
ABC. Always be closing.
Always be closing.
Formula, write it down. Write it down.
That's it. But I really do want to reiterate before we move on the passion that you absolutely have to have in whatever it is that you're talking about, whatever it is you're selling or discussing. If you don't have that passion, walk away. Find another career. Find something else to be passionate about. But there's nothing worse than hearing someone sell something that they don't have complete passion for.
For sure. For sure.
I think that's where sales starts to feel like a dirty word, I think, is when people sell something they're not passionate about. I think that's why a lot of times hygienists or dental professionals in general don't feel like they're selling when they're educating patients on what they need for their oral health, because they're not. They're just talking about what they're passionate about. And
you know, our dental professionals are incredible that way, right? They're really taking their passion that they've spent years and years of school kind of crafting. They're taking that passion for their patients. They're listening to their needs. They're also kind of diagnosing the problem, and they're providing solutions. And so their passion oftentimes leads us to act differently, and that inadvertently helps us to improve oral care. It's a remarkable thing to work alongside some of the most incredible people in the oral care industry.
Okay, so let's move on. Next section. That was a really long intro, and I'm sorry I derailed everyone. This is the good stuff that's coming right up.
No problem. So I actually think I have a kind of a nice segue to get us back, if that's okay. I've got another quick story.
Get us back on track.
Okay. But I love where we're going. It's super cool. We were talking about passion for whatever it is that you do. And I'm super excited to talk about the fact that Procter & Gamble is passionate about their people. So I've got another really quick story I want to tell you. You heard me mention that I'm the mother of 2 of the most beautiful children you would ever see in your life. My son is 17 and my daughter's 10. When my daughter was 3.5 years old, she contracted the flu. So many kids do every year, but this time, this child with the flu became very, very sick. And my daughter went from being a happy-go-lucky 3.5-year-old little girl running around singing a little bit of harmony at that age with her mom to being on life support for 40 days. It was 40 of the hardest days of my life. But what made these days more bearable was the fact that what Procter & Gamble says about their employees, how much they care about their people. Man, oh man, I saw that firsthand. My team stepped up in a big way. They let me know that all of my work would be covered. My focus was to be on being a mom. And the vice president of the work that I was doing at that time hand wrote me a letter. What vice president takes the time to handwrite a letter to their employee to let me know she was praying for our family and our daughter, to let me know that work would be there when I returned, and that, again, my focus was to be on my child at that moment? I will tell you both, yes, that from that day on, I had already been giving 110% to every day that I walked into work at P&G, but it turned it up like 40 notches. So I come to work every day with 150% of myself there, because this company not only lived up to the word of caring so much for their people, but I got to personally see it at work. And it was something that changed the entire trajectory of not only my life, but the way that I was looking at the work that I did with Procter & Gamble. So when you hear me talk about passion, this is a little bit of where that comes from. But I also have a sincere passion for equality and inclusion in oral care as well. So I really want to spend a couple minutes, if it's okay, just talking about the work that I get to do. I'm honored to do every day.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do this.
Let's do this and talk about it really in kind of 4 pillars. The first is our employees. The second is our brands. The third is our partners. And then finally, our communities. And I really do want this to be such a wonderful conversation about these 4. And I really want your audience to know and understand that the passion that I hope they can hear from me today isn't just lip service. It truly is embedded in everything that I do. And so for your audience members who haven't had an opportunity to check out some of the most incredible and impactful videos just about people authentically being who they are and coming to whatever it is with their whole full selves, I want to invite your audience to go to youtube.com and just look up 4 videos: the talk, the look, the choice, and the pause. And these 4 videos really reference the fact that at P&G, it's an integral part of who we are to celebrate bringing your whole authentic self to work. That we celebrate equality and inclusion in every way, from gender, racial, socioeconomic, sexual preference, and so much more. And truly that at P&G, the hashtag we see equal, it's what we believe in, it's what we bring to the forefront, and it's something that I'm super proud to do and work alongside every day.
Let me ask a question about that.
Sure.
Have you noticed with P&G an uptick in the consciousness of these efforts? Or do you feel in your time there, since you have been there for quite some time, that they've always been doing the right thing? That's kind of a loaded question, in case they're not.
It's a really great question. My experience has always been that Procter & Gamble has always tried to do the right thing. That's always been the intention. And I think, of course, goodness, the past year has been a really great opportunity to show that Procter & Gamble always has tried to do the right thing. And there's new ways in which it's manifesting itself today. But as I think about my time as a P&G employee, I can confidently tell your audience that it's always been that way. Maybe it's been more internal versus external, but they've always strived to do the right thing.
Did we ever talk about what your title is, by the way, at P&G?
Oh,
by the way,
that's it's probably important that we mention that. I am the director of diversity for the Professional Oral Healthcare Organization.
So we're hearing it from the expert, everyone. I should have clarified that at the beginning. Sorry about that, Cheya.
There's no expert here. You heard me mention in those pieces of advice, I am constantly listening, constantly learning. And again, it's one of the other kind of benefits of being a Procter & Gamble employee, I work alongside some of the most intelligent people I have ever met in my life. And they challenge me every day to take higher, to imagine and dream far beyond whatever it is that I'm doing today. And that support just challenges you to go to the next level and give that 150% all the time.
It's nice to be able to work in that kind of an atmosphere.
It is.
It's not something that's actively worked towards in a lot of in corporate environments or even small practices, which is kind of everyone shows up and does their thing and no one has a focus on it. And so that's nice that it's discussed, it's made apparent, and it's working towards the goals.
Absolutely. And as we're talking about goals, one of our goals with our brands is that we're working to create patient education materials when you think about oral healthcare that are reflective of the communities that we serve. And so in my work, from focusing on some of the systemic health issues that plague communities and highlighting links to oral care, to providing tools and resources and brands to offer solutions in these areas, Creston Oral-B is really, really working hard to try to meet every patient exactly where they are and to help improve their oral health any and every way that we possibly can. And so we want to serve them more holistically. We're also working to kind of shatter stereotypes in our visual representation as well, such as showing images of dentists as female and hygienists as male. There's such good stuff when it comes to all of that. And we're just super proud to be kind of leading the way in that aspect.
You know, it's one thing that I think everyone probably knows this. You know, I've worked with P&G in the past as part of the Smile Council, and Raphael Rondon, Mr. RDH himself, was also part of that Smile Council. And that was something that was made very apparent to us as well. It wasn't overt. It wasn't a, hey, we're going to make you the token male of this thing. This is more of a, hey, let's figure out a way to seamlessly represent what's going on as this population is going from 0.5% to 1% to 1.5% to 2%. As it's growing, it needs that representation. And they recognize that really early on. And, you know, that was something that was super appreciated. And I know it's appreciated across all platforms, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, Andrew, when we're talking about all this information and I want it to feel real, and your audience might be asking, so kind of why are we talking about this? I've just got some statistics that I wanted to share with you that kind of bring home why this work matters. And again, why I've got so much passion behind it. So according to the NCBI, which is the National Center for Biotechnology Information, big words, right? African American children had higher levels of dental caries in 2009 to 2010, higher in the ages of 3 to 5, significantly higher than Caucasian children. So we're talking about 19% versus 11% respectively. And just hearing that statistic kind of made me think about things a little bit differently on childhood caries, and also maybe why there were other disparities in the oral care community, particularly this month around Black History Month. And as I was preparing to talk to your audience today, I really wanted to make sure that I also kind of brought up some of the stereotypes and some of the issues that do plague the Black community when you think about oral care. There's a lot of mistrust, according to some of the reports that I've read from the ADA, in the African American community amongst just patients themselves. And so we know that African Americans comprise 12.4% of the population, but only 3.8% of dentists self-identify as African American. And sometimes, you know, if you think about that statistic, the ADA has stated that the result of this is that there are barriers like that prevent dentists of color from studying, gaining acceptance to, and fully participating in the field of dentistry. So that's from kind of the dental professional side, but that also prohibits and frankly keeps patients of color from going to see the dentist because they really want to see someone that looks like them caring for them. And so it's why, again, I want to be intentional in the work that I do. And Creston Oral-B likewise wants to be intentional in making sure that any of the, patient education materials that are brought forth, that are leveraged and used in any dental office are representative of all ethnicities, all backgrounds. And again, I'm super excited to be working on that type of work in the role that I do today. All right, so let me get us back on track, talking a little bit more about our partners. In the professional oral care space, our affiliations with associations and other partners such as the NDA, which is the National Dental Association, the HDA, which is the Hispanic Dental Association, the ADA, ADIA, Brown Girl RDH, and more are incredibly important and reflect the diversity of people, of thought, of experience, and all that helps us serve patients of all backgrounds. And again, super proud to work with those partners in order to serve the dental community in the best possible way that we can. And then finally, to kind of bring it all together, communities. We're just excited at Crest Oral-B to have the opportunity to continue to serve in the communities in which we live, work. And you heard me talk about it, how we individually serve as people. And this year, one of the new ways that Creston Oral-B is serving the community is through our Bridges virtual summits. I'm super proud of these. These summits focus on education via a continuing education course, a science forum, and a community service celebration. And we are strategically conducting these throughout multiple cities in the U.S. this year. So we're coming to a city near you potentially. But this is really great work that I think really showcases and highlights that Creston Oral-B and Procter & Gamble look to serve the community with the products and brands that we bring forth every single day. One other resource that I'll mention when you think about communities is dentalcare.com. And it offers and provides multiple options to serve communities through multiple languages, inpatient education, through free CE courses, and so much more. So I know I talked about these 4 buckets very quickly, but I just want you to know that this is the work that I am honored to and get to do day in and day out. And I hope that your audience, as they're serving their patients, really think about and think of Creston Oral-B in a positive way and see everything that I've talked about today really come to life in their practice when they see a Creston Oral-B representative walk in the door.
Let me ask you how, if someone was interested in going to one of these virtual summits for Bridges, how would they know about it? Or is there a place they can sign up for it? Do they just need to contact you? Like, how does that work?
Please don't contact me, although I would be an open book to help them find the right way. But there's a couple ways that they can do this. Dentalcare.com is a fantastic place where anyone can kind of provide their information, and in the subject line, put Bridges Virtual Summits. And we'll ask you a couple questions to find out where you're located. And if you're located near one of our virtual summit locations, we'll send you that information lickety-split, and we'll provide a link that will allow you to join the virtual summit, and we'll be happy to have you there. The other way is if you are located in one of the locations where we're having the Bridges Virtual Summits this year, it's highly likely that one of our territory account executives will be visiting your office and providing you with your own personal invitation to join the summit. And so those are 2 of the best ways to get involved in those summits themselves. And you can use me, Andrew, as a absolute last resource if you absolutely can't find it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone don't do that. Everyone just do the other way. So it'll work out just fine. Cheya, I wanted to also mention for our audience, because I think that it's something that I didn't realize. I think early on in my career, I was essentially signed up. Our whole office was as part of the Hispanic Dental Association. And you don't have to be a member of that particular group to be a member of the associations and the organizations of whatever they are. So what I would encourage people to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cheya, but I would encourage you to go to all their websites, look up what they stand for, what they believe in, and what the initiatives are that they're doing. If it's something that you feel strongly about. So for example, of course, I think everyone knows this a bajillion times over. I lived in the Philippines. I love Filipinos. If there was something for Filipinos in America, a Filipino dental association that was nationwide, which there probably actually is. And that is something that I would want to support.
Sounds like a good project for you, Andrew.
If P&G can support that financially, so I can do that, let's work on that. But I think that I feel strongly about that community. I love them. I speak the language, everything about it. I would want to support them. And so I would try and be a member for that. And so again, my advice is look up all the different groups, find something that you can identify with to support, and feel free to just send emails to them and ask them questions about membership. A lot of the times they have membership right on their homepage of, what it looks like. So please do that.
And, Andrew, I don't want to speak for any of the associations, but from my interactions with them, they welcome people of all ethnicities who have just a passion for serving people in whatever community it is that you're interested in learning more about. And to your point, I think it's worth it. If you've got any interest, by all means, go peruse the website, look for some commonalities, and then reach out. Everyone is excited to have help nowadays, especially in the area of equality and inclusion.
So Cheya, I'm going to have you set your P&G hat off to the side for a quick second, because these might be things that are more of something that you can say on your own behalf and maybe not from a company standpoint. And if we need to edit these ones out, we can do that as well. But okay. I want to ask some questions that may be a little bit insensitive, and maybe they're not. Because I feel like now in this day and age, I think there are a lot of people, myself, Brittany, everyone here at Tell2 Hygienists, that wants to be supportive of especially things like Black History Month. Obviously, we don't want to, virtue signaling is a big thing right now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but having people on a show just to say what you stand for if you don't really believe it. So how can someone like maybe myself and Brittany and a lot of our listeners celebrate and support Black History Month in a way that's appropriate?
That is such an incredible question, Andrew. And I don't want to speak for all African Americans here, but I will tell you, for me, what we're doing here today is incredibly important. It's just about having a conversation. And I think there's got to be a little bit of trust in that conversation and transparency, that the questions that are being asked, the conversation that is being had is authentic, right? And that you are truly trying to understand, seeking to understand, if you will, more about the demographic, in this case, the African-American patient or consumer, and just be inquisitive and want to learn. Put on someone else's shoes and just learn a little bit about their journey. And so I think, to your point, during this month, the last thing anyone wants to hear is it's Black History Month, and so I just want to learn about Black history this month. That would kind of be my second thing. Let's talk about Black history as a part of the history of this country, and let's talk about it 365 days a year, not just 30 days in 1 month. I would challenge us to do that with Hispanics, Asians, Indians, any ethnicity, as well as Caucasians. There's a history and a story behind every single person. And so for me, especially during this month, I think open-ended quality conversations are where things just begin. The other thing I would personally suggest is do some reading and watching of some of the tough movies and videos this month. That really does help for folks to maybe see Black history in a unique and different way. And I've heard at times that some of the reading, some of the videos, some of the movies can be difficult to watch. And I would agree. Even being a Black American myself, there's some of the books that I read that I have to put down, frankly, and then pick back up again later, or movies that I watch that really invoke a sense of pride in the Black history of America, as well as there's some pain points as well. But I think it's incredibly important that we learn from our history so that we don't repeat it. And, in this month, I really do. I think that can also kind of be a bridge. And then finally, I really encourage people of all ethnicities, all backgrounds. If you're passionate about Black History Month, about African Americans, just become an advocate. As I mentioned before, have the conversations with your family members, with your friends. And sometimes those can be tough in and of themselves. I was talking to a coworker the other day, and we were just talking about how we're not that many generations removed from slavery, from people of color being able to use the restrooms along with their white counterparts, or, even going to the dentist. It was kind of taboo years ago for you to see a Black patient walking into a white dental practice. And so just things like becoming an advocate, those are what might feel like small steps, but they're tremendously huge things that can go a really long way in not only celebrating this month, but celebrating all of history throughout the year.
I have one more question for you about in these regards, because I'm thinking about the practice managers or whoever is in charge of maybe kind of like a morale officer or whoever's in charge of celebrations and things like that in their office. What are some things, or what are some resources that they could find things to show that the office celebrates? Or maybe alternatively, how can they find resources on diversity and inclusion as like kind of like for a company rather than just for an individual?
Man, Andrew, you are throwing some really good questions at me tonight, and I love that you're asking them. Well, I'm going to put a shameless plug in here again for dentalcare.com, where Creston Oral-B has a social media toolkit where you'll find our Mr. Toothy featured. And there's a celebration in every single month where he's featured to help offices celebrate regardless of what month it is, whether we're talking Dental Health Month, Pride Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, etc. And so there's downloadable banners that an office can use to put on their social media pages and celebrate that month along with the rest of our country, given whatever month it is. There's also a couple of other things that can be done. I've heard folks talk about having a suggestion box. You can pose a question for the suggestion box on things that patients would like to see during certain months be celebrated. I've heard from some of the best dentists in the industry, the way that they celebrate during specific months is if they've got an employee that works in the practice and they are of that ethnic descent of whatever month it is that they're celebrating, they'll ask what matters to them, what things they'd like to see around the office to celebrate. I know this one dentist had several Indian patients on her staff, and she really wanted to know more about the culture. And so one of the things she did was she asked one of the employees to order a traditional Indian lunch for the practice. And during that lunch, to explain what each one of the foods was and why it was important to the Indian culture. And I think things like that go a long, long way. And then finally, there's lots of tools and resources, if you Google them, just about practical ways that you can incorporate celebrations into any type of practice. But I think in the dental industry, it's worth it to also just really pay attention to what's happening culturally, socially, and then kind of highlight those things, talk about them Put up posters in your waiting room that feel inclusive of all people. Make sure that if you're in a Spanish speaking location, that not only is your voicemail message in English, but it's also in Spanish. That tells, patients of different descents that, hey, we not only welcome you here, but we can understand if you leave us a message in another language. And things like patient education materials in multiple languages, so that if you've got a patient where a dental professional doesn't speak their language, but you can hand them something that's in their language, especially if maybe English is their second language. I think it takes the term caring to a whole new level, and it makes patients really feel valued and know that they've come to the right practice to take care of their oral care.
Key, there's something interesting I noticed as you were speaking. I was thinking about, again, Brittany's here on the podcast. If I had a wish for people, it would be, and I know COVID's a thing, so we can't really travel right now, but it's to get out of your own area for a little bit. Go do some traveling. Brittany's done some extensive traveling. I'm always surprised by how much that she's done. And I'm like, wait, you went there too? The people who have traveled and experienced other cultures for not just a weekend trip, right, but that have regularly done that, I have noticed, this is completely anecdotal, there's not going to be any studies on this problem. Well, maybe there are studies, I don't know. But they have a much easier time being inclusive and loving in their offices. They are willing to ask questions about someone's culture where, someone who's only maybe regionally located is maybe afraid to ask those questions, maybe afraid they're going to offend those people, maybe afraid of the unknown, whatever that is. And so once this pandemic has calmed down, I would love for people to travel, even if it's, you don't have to go to far distances, just out of your own local area and experience something new, because I think that opens up your mind and the possibilities for what's out there in life. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but that's something that I noticed. Sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I just want to chime in that while we are in the pandemic right now, and obviously traveling isn't ideal, and even after the pandemic, depending on your financial situation and time off, whether or not you can travel, there are lots of ways to immerse yourself in culture in your city, whether you're traveling or not. So I would just challenge you to watch movies that are based on other cultures. We're in an era where technology is at our fingertips and we have just unlimited access in seconds. Watch documentaries or read books, join groups online, try to have conversations with people. I don't want to say that make you uncomfortable, but that you feel nervous talking to because you are afraid that you might not say the right thing or ask the right questions. Just get to know those people, because you'll be so much more emotionally rich for it. And it really is the best gift. I'm super fortunate that I have been able to travel and that I have this just joy for all cultures, but everyone can have it. You can definitely, do your part during the pandemic to start that journey.
I think to the point that you both were making, I tell my kids all the time, you can say anything, you can ask anything. It's just the way that you do it, right? And so I think what you're both saying is spot on. Just be inquisitive. Just learn as much as you humanly possibly can, and just walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I know that is an old adage that folks use kind of flippantly, but I think it's incredibly important, especially when you think about equality and inclusion, because at the end of the day, we are all unique, but we're also united.
Cheya, I really appreciate your time tonight. It's been, an hour of awesomeness, and we really appreciate you. If someone wanted to reach out to you for whatever reasons, how might they contact you?
The best way to catch me is by email. You can email me at Dixon, D like dog, IXON .cr@pg.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And I welcome all suggestions. The work that you heard me talk about today is just the start of what it is that I hope to accomplish in the work that I'm doing, that I know Creston Oral-B hopes to do and is doing today. So I welcome any and all questions, any suggestions, And who knows, you might see your thoughts kind of delivered in a new and unique way in the work that I do every day. So I'm really thrilled that I had this opportunity to speak to you both tonight. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I would love to come back anytime you'd have me.
Oh, that's gonna happen.
Well, another great week, another great episode. We thank you all so much for listening each week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, whatever podcasting app you're using. Also, just a reminder, our guests are so fantastic that they love when you reach out. They love when you interact with them on social media. And you can interact with us on social media as well at Instagram or Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find us at A Tale of Two Hygienists. You can also go to our website, entitledtwohygienists.com. And we would love for you to go there and subscribe for our newsletter. We have lots of stuff on our website. We have a learning center. You can search for any episode. This is an easy place for you to find the links for our CE courses and take the test. There's just so much more there. So head over to entitledtwohygienists.com. And if you want, you can also send us an email. I'm Michelle at entitledtwohygienists.com. And then there's Andrew, who is Andrew at entitledtwohygienists.com. And we just want to say thank you so much. If you love this episode and you're loving the podcast, we would love for you to subscribe and leave us a review. And, 5-star, go ahead and do it. 5-star, just hit that 5-star and then leave us a review. We really appreciate it. We love reading them. It fuels our fire. And we just appreciate you guys so much. I think that's it, Andrew. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye, y'all.